Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely breathtaking piece of philosophical world building. We're looking at a source text that constructs a whole cosmic sci-fi universe. It's this mythic parable that brilliantly blends the deep existential questioning of the Book of Job with the sweeping theatrical drama of Goethe's Faust. And it does all of this just to explore one absolutely crucial concept: the fundamental necessity of human struggle. If you're someone who loves deep philosophy translated into epic graphic novel-style science fiction, you're going to absolutely love the architecture of this story. So let's just jump right in.
Can true perfection exist without suffering? This single, incredibly profound question is what kicks off our whole cosmic drama. Seriously, think about it for a second. Can perfection actually be real if it's never experienced any kind of suffering? This question immediately pulls us into a Faustian universe that's designed to test a massive hypothesis. Can absolute certainty survive the messy, unpredictable chaos of physical reality? It's a classic philosophical dilemma, right? But this source text takes that abstract idea and literally turns it into the laws of physics for an entire universe. Okay, let's set the stage by contrasting the grand cosmic architecture of this universe, because the difference between its two realms is just stark. First up, we have New Canaan. Now, this isn't your traditional clouds and harps kind of heaven. It's described as a hyper-technological Dyson structure, a realm of pure subjectivity, blinding light, absolute symmetry, and untried sterile perfection. Everything is perfectly ordered, no decay, no shadow. But then, look at the other side. Hanging in the void below is New Eden, the material negation. This planet is defined by mud, blood, evolution, and entropy. It's gritty, it's chaotic, and it's absolutely essential to the story. It acts as the crucible. It's the testing ground, where the spirits of New Canaan literally have to go and interact with the raw stuff of the universe just to prove they even exist. And that brings us to the underlying philosophical engine of this entire universe, the Fichtean dialectic. Now, the philosopher Johann Gottlieb Fichte proposed these concepts of the Ich, the self, and the Nicht-Ich, the not-self. And what's wild is that this world building literally turns abstract philosophy into physical planets. New Canaan represents the Ich, the realm of pure subjectivity and absolute certainty. But Fichte argued that a self can't actually know its own freedom or power unless it hits an obstacle. It needs a negation. And that is exactly what New Eden is. New Eden is the Nicht-Ich. It's the material obstacle required for the self to push against, to struggle with, and ultimately to prove its own existence.
So, who exactly populates this massive cosmic drama? Well, here are the key players, translating classic literary archetypes into high-stakes sci-fi entities. First up, we have the king, or the sovereign intellect. He's a Yahweh archetype, but he rules by simply positing reality. He literally just thinks things into existence. And he's completely blind to the suffering on New Eden, because to him, it's just a mathematical necessity. Then you've got the uncanny jester. Think of him as your cosmic Satan or Mephistopheles archetype. He is literally the not-self-made flesh. He represents doubt, entropy, and his entire role is to drag the king's certainty down into the mud to test it. And finally, we have the court. These are the Elohim or the Goethean chorus. They're the cosmic architects who just blindly sing the praises of the system, arguing that all this sterile perfection is both perfectly moral and rational.
Act 2, the Genesis wager. The drama really ignites here in the high court of New Canaan, where the king and his ministers are celebrating the genesis of the material world. The dialogue in this opening wager is absolutely brilliant. The king declares, "Look at the planet below. It moves by our laws. It suffers, yet it kneels. The self has posited its world." He arrogantly points to New Eden as absolute proof of his perfect glory. He looks down at this planet of mud and entropy and essentially stakes his complete sovereignty on the idea that his pure reason and virtue are so powerful they'll endure even in the dark, chaotic void of the material world. I mean, it is the ultimate statement of untried, sterile perfection. But the jester, he isn't buying it for a second. He just laughs at the king's arrogance and delivers this devastating Fichtean critique. He says, "You have created a passive not-self down there. Let me turn your passive creation into an active rebellion. Let us see if your certainty can withstand true negation." This rank here is the core of the drama. The jester understands that true freedom requires overcoming actual, active obstacles. So he demands the right to go down to New Eden and drag this supposed certainty right into the mud to see if it breaks. And, much like the Lord in the Book of Job, the king accepts the wager. And this brilliantly illustrates how deeply the philosophy is baked into the very text of the source. To maintain a high Githian style, the author weaves the conflict right into the dialogue's stylistic DNA. It's so cool. The court, which represents mathematical order and the philosophical thesis of New Canaan, speaks entirely in rigid, beautiful, metered verse. It sounds perfect, but it's totally inflexible. But then the jester, representing chaos, the antithesis, and the messy reality of New Eden, he speaks in mercurial, shifting rhythms and prose. You literally hear the philosophical clash between strict order and chaotic negation in the rhythm of the words themselves. It perfectly balances cosmic grandeur with a sharp, ironical wit.
Act 3, the 3 cosmic dances.
So, to test the king's absolute design, the jester descends into the mud and blood of New Eden and executes 3 specific, metaphorical dances. This is his way of forcing the inhabitants to evolve. Step 1 is the dance of the thesis. The jester wears the mask of order. He arrives like a savior and pushes New Eden to mimic New Canaan's rigid perfection. But what happens? It creates a totalitarian utopia of pure reason that completely suffocates the human soul, proving that untried perfection is really just a prison. So he pivots to step 2, the dance of the antithesis. Now he puts on the mask of chaos and introduces absolute negation. He unleashes these immense Jobian trials, plagues, systemic collapse, and pure existential silence, forcing everyone to cry out into the void. And finally, step 3, the dance of the synthesis, or the mirror of freedom. By pushing the planet to a suffocating extreme of rigid order and then shattering it with absolute chaotic negation, the jester forces a final confrontation. The inhabitants realize they cannot rely on the king anymore. They have to forge their own identities.
What's absolutely brilliant about the resolution in this explainer is the ultimate takeaway. Through this massive, agonizing struggle, true self-actualization is finally achieved. By overcoming the terrible trials of their material world, the beings of New Eden actually transcend their creator's rigid design. They achieve true Fichtean freedom. They become a fully conscious self that no longer needs the king's positing or his permission to exist. The obstacle, the actual suffering itself, was the exact thing required to forge their true independence.
Which brings us to a really beautiful realization, perfectly captured by this quote from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Part of that power which still produceth good, whilst ever scheming ill. In this universe, tragedy and comedy completely bleed together. You see, the jester's cruelest, most chaotic tricks, the plagues, the trials, the crushing negation, they were exactly what forced humanity to wake up and evolve. Without the jester scheming ill, New Eden would have just remained a passive, sterile shadow of New Canaan forever. The chaos was literally the necessary catalyst for good.
So I want to leave you with the ultimate question to take away from this explainer. If true self-actualization demands friction, what chaotic obstacles in your own life are secretly acting as your jester, pushing you to evolve? We spend so much of our lives wishing for the pristine, untried perfection of New Canaan, right? Just wanting things to be perfectly ordered and free of struggle. But as this incredible sci-fi parable shows us, it's actually in the mud, the entropy, and the friction of New Eden that we forge who we truly are. So, as you navigate your own pursuit of wisdom, ask yourself, how is the friction in your world actually setting you free? Thanks for exploring this fascinating universe with me today. Keep asking the big questions.